Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Over 50 and Flourishing. I'm your host, Dominique Sachse, and I am thrilled to bring you the very first episode of October, which, as you know, is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This month holds a very special place in our hearts as most of us have been affected by breast cancer in some way, whether we personally know somebody who has it or is currently even battling breast cancer at the moment. Our spotlight today is on an organization that's really been a beacon of hope for women for 37 years, advocating for their well-being and tackling the challenges that women face head on. Joining us today is just an amazing woman, a dear friend, somebody I've known in the Houston community for so many years. She's the CEO and co-founder of The Rose. Her name is Dorothy Gibbons. She has essentially been on the forefront of promoting breast health and fighting against the odds for years, and I am honored to have her on today's episode. The Rose provides essential breast cancer screening, diagnostics, and treatment services for those who are uninsured and underinsured. At The Rose, it's not just about medical services. It's about ensuring that every woman, regardless of her financial situation, has access to top-tier breast health care, from mammograms to ultrasounds, biopsies, even surgical consultations. They offer a comprehensive range of services that prioritize early detection and holistic well-being. So whether you're joining us today as a survivor, a caregiver, a healthcare professional, or simply somebody who cares, we are here today to ignite conversations, create connections, and pave the way for a healthier tomorrow. Pumpkin spice lattes, freshly picked apples, terrible BO. Let's face it, summer is not the only time we get body odor. We can get just as smelly under our favorite fall sweaters too. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Lumi Whole Body Deodorant for pits, privates, and beyond. But let me tell you about the Lumi Starter Pack. It's perfect for new customers. It does come with this one, a solid deodorant stick. This is in coconut, and it smells great. You also get a cream tube deodorant. Mine is in lavender, and then 2 free products of your choice, just like a mini body wash here in tangerine, and wipes. Who doesn't love wipes? Because you can pack them and go, and these will keep you cool as a cucumber, and you get free shipping. So my friends, here's a special offer for you. New customers get $5 off a Lumi Starter Pack with the code over 50 at lumideodorant.com. Now that equates to more than 40% off your starter pack when you visit lumideodorant.com and use my code over 50. Dorothy, I am so happy to have you with me today. Before we even launch into anything, you and I have such a neat history together because of my time at Channel 2 and our reporting on you and The Rose and all it is that you have created, which we're going to really just dive deeply into because I'm so proud of you and what you've done.
Oh,
But I was the assigned reporter to cover you. And then when we partnered on the mobile mammography unit, you guys plastered my image all over a van. And I would see that thing travel through town. I was like, wow, there I go again.
That was our call of our fame right there was having your picture on that van, and people would stop us and say, oh, "I saw that. Do you know?" I mean, I said, "Yeah, I know.
I know.
She's on it. Yes,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun, and that was the first really portable mobile units around. So it was kind of a unique time in the life of the Rose, and certainly in my life.
Well, and The Rose is known. I'm going to have you kind of punt and set up the concept and the inception of The Rose, but you really wanted to bring breast cancer screening to an underserved population. So kind of walk us through how all of that began.
Back in the 80s, it was a time of huge economic downturn. We had gone through the oil bust. There were many, many reasons why women were not even thinking mammography. First of all, it wasn't well known. Second, you didn't go to the doctor for screening. There was nothing like that going on. And, at that time, so many women had lost insurance. Their husbands were out of work. It was the number one time of foreclosures in Texas history. And I was working at Bayshore Hospital as a PR person, knew nothing about anything like this, and had met Dr. Dixie Melillo, who had such a passion for women and for explaining breast cancer and for explaining why early detection was so important. And my job was to market her. And so I took her out in the community. We did all these talks. But invariably, Dixie would be the only doctor that would see those late-stage breast cancers. And when she would call me on, usually it was a Friday afternoon, she would call me and say, bring your camera. And I was also the medical photographer there. And the pictures I took were things that no one should ever have to see, much less be experiencing. Breast cancer doesn't just sit in your body and kill you. Breast cancer erupts through the breast and sits on your chest, and you can be like that for many months without treatment. And what we were seeing was a lot of advanced stage breast cancer, and the story was all the same. Women didn't have any money, didn't have insurance, and didn't know where to go. That first year or so, I took 13 pictures like that. When I show these pictures to my staff, they go, well, that was back in the 80s. No, we saw one just like that 3 months ago. So until we don't have women coming in at that late stage, then the work of the rose is not done.
How did the rose begin? Obviously, you felt this strong, compelling reason to do something. I mean, images like that are burned in your brain forever.
Right. Well, the short story is, after hauling Dixie around, and I did haul her around. I tell everybody Dixie never goes anywhere by herself. And so I was the designated driver, the designated carrier of the projector, the designated make the slides, the designated sign her up for whatever talk we were going to do. But I had read a book called Alternatives, and it was written by Rose Kushner. Rose was a journalist for the Baltimore Sun, was the first female journalist to cover Vietnam, and she was very proud of her. She's just about 5'2", very proud of her Jewish heritage, and had a mouth on her that would embarrass anyone. And so when she found a lump in her breast, she went to her doctor, and he said, "Oh, Rose, this is not going to be anything. Let's just go ahead and do your biopsy. Oh, but if it is, we'll do the path then." That's how it was in 1979. We'll do the path, and then we'll come out and tell your husband, Harvey, and we'll go ahead and do your mastectomy. And Rose said, "You're going to do what to my boobs?" And they said, "No, Rose, there's no reason to put you under anesthetic again. These are never anything." And she said, "No, you're not going to. No one else is going to make this decision about my breast except me." 16 surgeons later, before she found someone that would let her wake up and make that decision.
Wow.
Now, of course, it was breast cancer. And that put her on this mission to be sure that lay people understood what they needed to ask and what they needed to do. She was instrumental in getting the 2-stage biopsy procedure done, protocol done. She was more instrumental in getting more bills through Congress that had to do with mammography and those kind of things, the rights of the patient, than anyone else. But she had written this book. I read it. So she was going to be a speaker at a convention in Miami Beach. And again, remember, Dixie never went by herself, so she's dragging me to this doctor's conference. I had no clue about stuff like that. I mean, I'd go and listen. But Rose was going to be there. So I wrote this letter, and I said, "Rose, we're going to be in Miami, and I'd love to have coffee with you just to tell you what we're doing in Houston, Texas." Rose said, "Hey, I've got an evening for you. How about having dinner with Harvey and me?" I went, "Oh, my gosh." She was my idol. I mean, I was just so excited. And, we're in this really fancy-dancy hotel. I mean, I never went anywhere in my life. I mean, there's linen on the tables, linen closet.
Might have been the Fontainebleau.
Oh, my gosh, it was just gorgeous. And we met Rose. As we're sitting there, it's Harvey and Rose and me and Dixie. And as we're sitting there, Dixie starts talking about all the education she's doing. Now, I mean, honestly, we were going 2 and 3 times a week somewhere to talk to someone. And Rose kind of listened to her for a little while, then kind of leaned into her space and said, well, tell me, Dixie, after you do all that educating, what are you doing with those women? You might as well take them to the edge of the cliff and push them off. And Dixie, now, you don't talk to a general surgeon like this. You got to remember, back then, she was one of 3% of all the physicians who, A, was female, but general surgeon, there were very few females that were general surgeons. So, she was like,
taken aback.
Yeah, I mean, really, So
Rose was pushing her.
Yeah. Dixie said, well, that's just it. There's nowhere to send these women. Mammography is just so expensive. Even the hospital, I talked them down to a different price, but, it's still not available to most women. And then Rose said, well, Dixie, why don't you quit your pissing and moaning and get off we use duff in public, but get off your duff and go start yourself a nonprofit and take care of those women. Now, I don't know what Dixie and I thought she was going to say to us. Maybe, good little girls, y'all are really doing a good job.
Sure.
Not Rose Kushner. We came back to Houston. I didn't know anything about a nonprofit. I was working at the hospital. I was on HCA's faculty. I was going to move into that arena. Dixie's a general surgeon. She's doing gallbladders as well as everything else.
Yes.
She's building her practice. I mean, we didn't have this even anywhere close in our brains. Rose called me every Friday.
Follow-ups.
What have you done about your nonprofit? Nothing. What congressman have you called to get this bill through? I don't even know a congressman. It was like, I'm working 85 hours here. I can't keep doing all of this. And she kept at me and kept at me.
Wow.
And then finally, I filled out the application, the nonprofit application. It was approved in 7 days.
You're
Now,
kidding.
that was a first miracle. No,
Well, yeah.
Lots of miracles, but
Sure.
many miracles. And so, had our nonprofit, and we decided to call it The Rose as a living tribute to Rose. Now, my maiden name was Rose. Dixie's married name at the time was Rose.
Are you serious?
We had met Rose Kushner.
So three worlds collide here serendipitously.
So what in the world were we going to call it?
The Rose.
The Rose.
Yeah.
So I wrote, again, Rose a letter, pre-emails, this is a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, Rose, we've got a nonprofit and we're going to call it The Rose as a living tribute to you. Rose picks up the phone and calls me and says, what the hell do I need a living tribute for?
Wait, it's my maiden name too.
I know, I said, I will never please this woman. Now, Rose died before she ever got to see either of our centers.
Oh.
And Harvey told me later on that whenever she had a chance and she was speaking to the public, she would somehow work in that there was a place in Houston, Texas that knew how to take care of uninsured people. And it just happened to be called The Rose.
Oh, what a beautiful story.
Oh, my gosh. I love telling the story of Rose because if there had been a Rose in our life, we wouldn't have done this.
No, of course not.
We all need a Rose in our life.
It always takes one. It just takes one person to plant a seed or an idea, but then people to implement that, right?
Yeah,
because you could have sat on it or nothing could have materialized, but you really put the wheel into motion, which is beautiful. So after you get the approval, you're a nonprofit. Now, how do you start getting the funding, the equipment, and everything you need to run the show over there?
Actually, we had a very generous donor, Ron Smith of Diagnostic Services, donate our first mammogram machine. I mean, this was top of the line. It was one of those old Xerox zero mammography machines, but it was still top of the line. Of course, we had no place to put it. And so we had a bachelor's auction. We sold men for breast cancer.
Oh, like a fundraiser.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Dixie sold her ex. We sold every doctor.
Don't get me started.
Right. Well, she said it's got to be good for something. And we sold all the doctors that we could find. We raised $7,000.
Right.
And the Seroptimists International of Pasadena, they were the ones that actually got behind it and helped us for so many years. And that was a group for women. Now, back then, it was probably the only group around for women, but they helped us a bunch. And so with that $7,000, we had a paid employee, a technologist. We had 2 volunteers to run the support stuff, phones and open the place and take the appointments. And they were both breast cancer survivors, both Dixie's patients. And we opened in a little 915 square foot storefront facility right next door to a dentist whose name was Dr. Butcher. And so we never had any problem helping people find our place.
Just look for Dr. Butcher's office.
Yeah, that was just the way we did it. And we opened with 53 women on the waiting list for free mammograms, because our thing was always, it was regardless of your ability to pay. We charged $50 for those who could pay, and then nothing for those who couldn't. And at that time, mammography was not covered by insurance.
Yeah. Hold that thought. There's so much more to talk about, because you grew by leaps and bounds. And so I want to talk about that and all the different services that you do offer. But for those of you listening to Over 50 and Flourishing, my guest is a longtime friend, Dorothy Gibbons, the founder of The Rose, which is a nonprofit here in Houston, Texas, helping the underserved community get access to breast cancer screening, as we are in Breast Cancer Awareness Month. My first interview here in October, and we'll be right back. Pumpkin spice lattes, freshly picked apples, terrible BO. Let's face it, summer is not the only time we get body odor. We can get just as smelly under our favorite fall sweaters too. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about Lumi Whole Body Deodorant for pits, privates, and beyond. Lumi deodorant was created by an OB-GYN who discovered that odor isn't just an underarm thing, it's an all over thing. So she developed pH optimized deodorant that is clinically proven to control odor everywhere for up to 72 hours. So hey, in the fall, under the wool, we can be just as fresh, okay? Now, I personally love Lumi and their products. Their natural ingredients and long-lasting effectiveness give me the confidence that I am looking for, especially in midlife, because body odor can increase. Plus, I really, really love their diverse range of scents, and they just add a personal touch to my routine. And that's what makes Lumi special, is their inclusive approach and body positivity. They celebrate uniqueness just like I do. And that's why I am a devoted Lumi fan. You see me holding up the deodorant stick here, but let me tell you about the Lumi starter pack. It's perfect for new customers. It does come with this one, a solid deodorant stick. This is in coconut, and it smells great. You also get a cream tube deodorant. Mine is in lavender, and then 2 free products of your choice, just like a mini body wash here in tangerine, and wipes. Who doesn't love wipes? Because you can pack them and go, and these will keep you cool as a cucumber, and you get free shipping. So my friends, here is a special offer for you. New customers get $5 off a Lumi starter pack with the code over 50 at lumideodorant.com. Now that equates to more than 40% off your starter pack when you visit lumideodorant.com and use my code over 50. Glad to have you with me today. I am talking with Dorothy Gibbons, co-founder of The Rose. She's been explaining how her nonprofit, which offers breast cancer screenings to the underserved population, people who are in financial situations where they cannot afford, even through insurance, but most of them probably don't even have insurance, access to breast cancer screenings. And you were telling us the beautiful story of how all of this came to be, and you started in a small storefront. I know eventually you grew. As I was working at KPRC, I interviewed you at your location down 610, and you had, big offices and lots of rooms to offer screenings for patients. And so how did you get the word out to people? And I know initially you said you had, 50 people waiting, and you would use those who could pay to help cover those who couldn't pay, which is a beautiful model, by the way.
Right. It was all word of mouth. And a lot of it was because of the public education that we had been doing, all the speeches that Dixie gave. But, we had a lot of champions in the media back then.
Yeah.
A lot of champions. And I can't say enough about how important that was to our beginning. Dixie was one of the top 10 women on the move the very first year that they had that. And that was a really big deal. And it was just like, whenever we had another milestone, somehow or another, the media was helping us to get there. So most of it, though, was that way, word of mouth, media.
Yeah. But this was also, and I remember when we would cover you all, this was at a time before social media, before, now we call it traditional ways of reaching people, but you really did need television and newspaper coverage to get the word out. And TV stations would always partner with nonprofits in the community and would work to do that. But you also had a much larger TV audience back then. So even when TV stations would cover you, you were really guaranteed a large, large audience that, now you get them in different ways. You get them through social media. You've got a podcast, which we're going to talk about. But it was a blessing that the media embraced you the way that it did.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I know that it pushed so many people your way who otherwise wouldn't have known or heard about what it is that you do.
Our second employee, Diana Place, came to us because of a radio show. And she had stage 4. And it was... I'm always amazed, and this is the first thing I learned in this world. There are no statistics that are going to dictate how you do. Seriously. She worked for us for 10 years, went on till moved and lived a very long life, and she was stage 4.
Yeah.
But, you just never know. Our other volunteer employee was Annabelle Bogus, and she was a 2-time breast cancer survivor. And so you never know. We always tell everyone, you are you. And this is a fight you're going to have to make, but you've got to really depend on the folks around you. You've got to believe in the treatment plan that has been laid out for you. I'm convinced that the more a woman is confident with her physician, the better she's going to do. It just makes sense. So, yeah, I've seen a lot in this breast cancer world.
Yeah, I want to dive into that more because it has most certainly evolved since when you started the Rose, even just in terms of the technology, the screening process, what comes first, different options and ways. At first it was solely mammography. For a lot of women with breast tissue, it's ultrasound and how critical that is. So tell me the evolution of that. And for a patient who goes to the Rose, what is the protocol and procedure? And what are some things that women should be asking their doctors for?
I'll tell you one thing that our lead radiologist, Dr. Raz, has shared with me, that since COVID, women are much more curious and are asking a lot more questions. That's number one. If there's something you don't understand that's going on, first ask that question. Any doctor worth their salt is going to answer you. Any doctor worth their salt is going to understand if you need a second opinion. So let's start there with any of this stuff. But it has evolved from mammograms, which were good, to the kind of mammograms that we have today. 3D is just so incredibly advanced. I can't even imagine what's going to come next, because it certainly sees a lot more than we ever saw before and can eliminate a lot of callbacks. And, every woman dreads that.
Yep.
No matter how quickly we get them in, no matter what, it's tough. Ultrasound, you combine mammography with ultrasound, and you have a really, really 98, 99% chance you're going to see everything that's in there, but you can never forget clinical correlation. If you know your breast and you find something different, then that's the first thing that's going to send you to go and get a mammogram. There's like 4 or 5 different cancers that you really can't see mammograms, ultrasounds, no matter what. So it has to do with knowing what your breast feels like and looking at your breast, all of those kind of things. So today we have MRIs, we have contrast-enhanced mammography. We have so many new things that help us with this detection. And at the end of the day, early detection makes all the difference in the world.
Have treatment protocols changed as well?
Oh, yes, for heaven's sakes. I remember when the only option you had was surgery and then chemo and then maybe radiation. I can remember when radiation was, oh, no, you're not going to need that. Yes, you are. No, you're not. I mean, the debates within the doctors. Now, remember, I'm a layperson.
Right.
But I would go to these conferences and go, if these guys can't agree on anything, then how the heck is the patient supposed to know what to do?
Right.
And that's true in medicine, period. But in the breast cancer world now, there's different, it's much more personalized. It's much more, you may have chemo, you may not. You may have chemo before surgery, you may not. And one of the fallacies about trying to cookie cutter breast cancer or any kind of disease is that you have your own personal makeup that's going to make a difference in what kind of treatment you have. So you can't compare. If your neighbor has breast cancer, you're the same age, a whole bit, it still may be very different because of the type you have, the stage it's found at. I mean, the list is long.
Right.
So you have to understand some of those things and why it's important. I think for uninsured women, now I'm talking about the insured women when I'm saying all these things.
Yes, of course, because there's so many more options. But what does happen
but
with somebody
with our
uninsured
women, unfortunately, a lot has not changed, even with the Rose. And of course, we've made many, many strides. We've touched many, many lives. I'm not denying that. But for the uninsured woman, her options are limited. She usually comes in at a later stage, unless we can catch her through our mobile screening, which screening is screening. Doesn't matter if you're insured or uninsured. If you can find something at screening, it's pretty much early detection.
Right.
But if you don't have the option of a doctor or access to care, insurance, understanding, speak the same language, go through the whole list.
Too many barriers, yeah.
Too many barriers. If you don't live in an urban area, even if you do, you still may have trouble getting there. We serve a large rural population with our mobile coaches. That's a whole different animal out there because you could travel 2 hours to get to a local hospital that has the same kind of mammography that we do. It's a very different world for the uninsured. At the end of the day, when an uninsured woman is diagnosed, her first question is, how am I going to pay for this? Not, am I going to survive? Right. That has always struck me as being so unfair. And, she has all the same concerns that any insured woman does, any woman does, her family, who's going to help, but for many times that uninsured woman, her income makes all the difference in the world. She may be single head of household. It's just a different world. And I keep thinking, if someone had asked me 37 years ago, what would be different, I would have said, well, we won't need a Rose. We're going to have found a cure for breast cancer, and for sure we're going to have found a way to help uninsured people. There's going to be a whole different world for them. No,
it's the same.
It's not. In fact, we have seen a 26% increase in 1 year over the other of the number of uninsured coming to us for help. It hasn't changed. And at the end of the day, there's another situation that goes on. Who wants to help? Who wants to ask for help? I mean, that's the hardest thing there is to do. I've heard many of your podcasts, and you often encourage women, get help from your support group, get help with therapy, but just asking for help to have a service?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I can't tell you the number of people who've come to us and who have not applied for sponsorship. That's what we call it. We don't call our patients indigent or any of that stuff. We say someone is sponsoring your service, and that's exactly what it is.
So is that how it works? They get sponsored to be able to have the payment covered?
Absolutely.
And who sponsors?
Individuals, grants.
Yep.
The insured woman allows us to have the operation. It's not like we use that insurance money to really pay for anything. It's just that we can do it. If you have 3 women scheduled, you can work one more in that hour. I mean, it's just very simply a matter of volume. But for that uninsured woman, we talk about her being sponsored. We hopefully allow her to keep that dignity so that when she does have to ask for help, but like I said, many of them will max out their credit card, borrow money from their family, go to someone else, and then when they need a biopsy, oh, by the way, well, XYZ hospital says you probably need to call the Rose at this point. Really, biopsies are expensive.
Does the Rose do biopsies?
Absolutely. And, at that stage, there is something wrong. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
So, and we do it anytime. I mean, we do the mammograms and the ultrasounds and the biopsies and the physician consult. And recently, we set up a mammogram to medical home program.
What does that mean?
Second most common reason why a woman will not have a mammogram is they don't have a doctor. Now, many of our sponsored women have not seen a doctor since their baby was born. I mean, this is just not a part of their routine life. I know lots and lots of insured women right now who are trying to find new doctors, but at the end of the day, the uninsured woman usually doesn't have that option, and she's really not very aware of the medical homes, of the federally qualified health centers, of the community clinics. That's just not in her
wheelhouse.
Yeah,
yes.
To understand that. So we have a nurse practitioner. She does a high-level health exam assessment, and then determines whether that lady needs screening or diagnostic mammogram. But the whole purpose of this program is to then introduce her to the medical home, is to make sure that she understands you're going to come here one time, get your mammogram. If something's wrong, we've already got a program in place to take care of you. If it's not, we're going to get you into a medical home because you have so many more needs than just a mammogram. And this thing has only been, sometimes I have good ideas, sometimes not so good, but this one is working, and we finally reached our 1-year point where we have women coming back now from the medical home to have their follow-up, have their annual mammogram.
That's great.
So that's really neat to see.
Are you seeing an increase in the quality of care she's receiving as well because of this?
Yes. She may not even know she has blood pressure problem or the headaches are due to that, or
so it's more a full picture that she's
full
getting.
Picture, absolutely.
Yeah. It's really striking to me the importance of somebody like me who's insured to come to you for my care and my wellness exam because of how that benefits other women.
Absolutely. And we do understand that not everyone's going to come to the Rose, but, there's other kind of ways to support us. Donations, straight out. Cover a mammogram, cover an ultrasound, cover a biopsy, the biggest, benefit of all to those women. Volunteer, tell others about the Rose. My deepest fear is that someone's walking around out there with a huge lump in their breast and doesn't know anything at all about us. And of course it happens. We're in a huge city, we're in a huge state. But, any time that you hear of someone who needs help, then send them our way.
Does that apply? My next question, do you only serve people in Houston, or is it Texas, or is it beyond?
We serve 43 counties that we take our mobile units to.
Okay.
We have patients from 110 counties in Texas, and some from out of state that still come back to us.
So some people can fly in from out of state to make appointments?
Sure.
Yeah. Are you aware of other nonprofits like this elsewhere? Or is the Rose elsewhere, or is it just here?
Our elsewhere is we actually have a regional office in Lufkin.
Okay, so still in Texas.
For our coaches, for one of our coach up there that moves around that part of the state. There are many states that offer the breast and cervical cancer program. That's a program through the CDC.
Okay.
That is available to low-income women, and it's in many, many states. But for something as comprehensive as the Rose, that doesn't just rely on that type of program, I don't know of anything. And I often hear, can you come and start a Rose here?
Oh, I'm sure. Can people do it? Can people take your model
absolutely
and bring it to their community?
And some communities have taken parts of our model, not the entire thing. Mammography is very expensive to do. It requires specialists. I mean, there's lots and lots of things that go along with any medical procedure, but especially mammography. But many people have taken our patient navigation program and implemented it within their program. And this is where we have patient navigators. Any disease, you could use a patient navigator. Any.
Sure.
I know a lot about breast cancer. I know squat about heart disease. So put me in that arena, I need a navigator. I need someone to help me understand what's happening next. Our navigators are street smart, speak the language, understand what it means when that woman says, well, I really can't make the doctor's appointment, and dig down to find out why. Because it's usually a resource issue, and many, many times we can address that. So our patient navigation program follows that woman. Our navigator is in the room when the woman receives her diagnosis. She is the one to say, to be there, be seen by the patient. And then when the doctor leaves, she's the one to say, what, did you understand, what you didn't? You know, and we know there's a whole bunch you're going to have questions about. Here's my phone number. Call me tomorrow. Call me the next day. In the meantime, we're going to get you into a program that will take care of your treatment. We have excellent navigators, and our ladies, once they get into the state program, they have a Medicaid product. Some women don't qualify, and for those we rely on our pro bono doctors, or a great program like Methodist Access Care. It just depends on where that woman lives, what her needs are, what she's going to qualify for. And those are all the things a navigator needs to know.
Yeah, but you know what, Dorothy? That gift of humanity is equally as important as the gift, if not more, of that mammogram, because it is such a scary time for a woman, and she doesn't know. And to have somebody there to guide, to handhold, and to hug is a beautiful thing that you offer.
Gosh, I'm so glad you said that. You know, during 2020, when our navigators could not go with our ladies, could not hug them. Oh, they were the ones that needed the therapist. They were having many issues with not being able to really be with their patients. It was such a time. But, you know, we have such great ones.
That's so good. Oh my gosh, so much to talk about. We're going to dive a little bit more into, you know, breast cancer itself, and then, of course, the projects that you've been working on and ways for people to hear you and hear these really incredible discussions with women who have experienced the breast cancer journey. And it's like you said, Dorothy, it is not one size fits all. It's not one journey fits all. And it's so important for each woman to find her own walk within all of this. So we're going to talk about that and so much more on the backside of this break on Over 50 and Flourishing. Welcome back. I'm chatting with Dorothy Gibbons, who's the co-founder of The Rose here in Houston, which is a nonprofit that services basically the uninsured community as well as the insured. It's people like me and those of you who have insurance that enables the uninsured to be able to get access to breast cancer screening and care. And she's done a remarkable job in getting the word out there. She's got a great podcast called Let's Talk About Your Breasts, which we'll talk about in a minute. And she's also the author of this book called The Women of the Rose. And so there are so many ways to learn about the rose itself and to learn about breast health. And so before the break, and we're really going to talk about breast health and so much, but you gave me a statistic during our commercial break that was a little staggering, and that is even though you are getting the uninsured in and they're getting screened, the survival rate still isn't super.
No. And everyone for the last 7 years of our stage 4 cancers have been found only in uninsured women. And what does that tell you?
Yeah.
I mean, not an insured woman in that group. So the thing is that the uninsured woman is 60% more likely to die of the disease than the insured woman. Insured woman's going to die of old age or heart disease or something else, but it won't be breast cancer. Uninsured woman, 60% more often, she's going to die of breast cancer. And that's, if you understand all the things about breast cancer, that's terrible.
Mm-hmm. Knowing what is out there and available.
What is out there, right.
Yeah. Let's talk about breast cancer itself. What are some of the things that you're seeing? I think I had listened to a podcast of yours not long ago, and you were commenting that younger women are getting it more and more. So tell me some of these trends and different types and what's going on.
And that is so true. We diagnose roughly 400 women every year. which is quite a healthy population of diagnosed women. We see a lot of pathology, and that means we see a lot more cancers per the number of people we serve than normal because we're serving an unscreened population, the uninsured. But the thing about the younger woman is people will say to me, well, it's because you have better screening tools. No, you don't screen a woman under 40, which, by the way, is the most stupid recommendation we've ever had in our life. Like one day you're 39 and your breasts say no. Yeah. Next day you're 40. All of a sudden it's time for breast cancer? No. So
that's interesting. Why do you feel that way?
Oh my gosh. Outside of what we're seeing,
yes,
in that these last few years, my goodness, the number of women under 40 who are being diagnosed continues to grow. The recommendations come purely from statistics. More women over 40, actually more women over 50 are going to have breast cancer than women under 50, under 40. Doesn't make any difference if that one woman is you. And the issue is with a younger woman, it is more likely, not all the time, but more likely to be more aggressive. So if ever there was a time to find that cancer, it is when you're younger. The other thing that has been incredibly alarming is the number of women who, within 2 years of having a baby, develop breast cancer. Think of all the changes that are going on in the breast during the time you're pregnant and you're delivering. And many times it gets poo-pooed. And it's, the doctor says, well, your breasts are changing. Many times that change is an indicator of breast cancer and needs to be checked out. And yes, you can check a nursing mother. I mean, there's so many more tools
think, Dorothy.
now.
Yeah. Is it because, but you're saying it's happening in a younger population. I was thinking, is it because older women are getting pregnant? And is maybe that a trigger? But no.
I think my last few guests who have been under 40, all of them were within that 2-3 years of having that baby. And of course, that just, on top of everything else, now you've got a newborn that you're worried about. So a young woman's best bet is to pay attention, to insist, and she may have to insist that she gets a mammogram. Keep in mind, if you're 40 or older, and again, this is a recommendation that fluxes back and forth and back and forth. Your screening mammogram is usually covered by insurance if you have insurance. If you're under, it's not, and it becomes a diagnostic mammogram. Well, who the heck wants to spend several $100s to find out there's really nothing going on? But that's exactly what has to happen. And if you're uninsured, you don't even know that you could have it. You think of it as an old woman's disease.
Was there ever a concern of starting it too young that there would be too much exposure to the radiation that comes from mammography?
I think that was one of the old myths that went on.
And what do you think sparked that?
There were many myths about mammograms and breast cancer. And in the early days, when we started the Rose, you couldn't even say the word breast.
Yeah,
on television.
I remember those days.
So I think the changes have been because women have said we're going to have a change. Pure and simple.
Right. And there's also been such evolution in the industry as well in terms of the machines and the screenings. And
never enough, or we still wouldn't be battling why is 40 the magic age.
Right, exactly.
I mean, if a woman needs a mammogram, she needs a mammogram.
Yeah. You talk about the importance of knowing your breasts, knowing your body. It's, always been recommended to screen once a month. They always say in the shower with soap because it's, easier to feel and manipulate. Is that still the recommendation? Do you still feel,
that's another very interesting thing that a lot of the big medical places will no longer recommend monthly self-exam.
Why?
Because
it seems so strange
because the research doesn't support it totally. According to one of the biggest studies ever done, just as many women develop breast cancer as during mammograms and not as did their self-exam as not. But this is free. Your hands are free.
Right.
You know your body. I have a very happy body. I mean, it's just, I know my body. And when it's not, I know something's going wrong.
Absolutely.
Women know their bodies. And the best way to know your body is not to be afraid to touch it, look at it.
Yep.
You know, breast or mirror images for the most part. What you feel on one side, you should feel on the other. And whenever there's something new, then it needs to be explored. It needs to be diagnosed.
Yeah. Literally, I'm in the shower. Every time I shower, I'm just moving around, feeling. It's to me, it's like I touch my arm or my leg. I just want to know and feel and make sure, And I have very dense breast tissue, as do a lot of women, which I know complicates things and oftentimes requires a mammogram followed up by an ultrasound because you cannot see anything in the mammogram. That tissue is so dense. So for women like me, I think the importance of the self-exam is critical because the tissue is changing. Cysts can come and go. Things move. I mean, it changes. And so I'm with you. It's like just because you have dense tissue doesn't mean that it's bad or it's going to necessarily develop into something, but it is who you are. So know it, right?
Right. Know your body. Look at it. Feel it.
Right.
Know it.
Or are there specific types of cancer that is starting to become more prevalent? I hear all the time about these different types of breast cancers and the BRCA1 gene. Is that right? I mean,
actually, yeah, they've identified 2, and there's more coming. That's the world for research, and I know that we see a lot of the unusual cancers, again, probably somewhat because of our population. I just think the ones that are so insidious are the ones that you might not see with mammograms, the ones you could only see by seeing a red splotch on your breast.
Like inflammatory breast cancer.
Like inflammatory breast cancer. The other breast cancer that we don't often talk about is the male breast cancer, that has the same rate as an inflammatory, and yet it's more deadly than any other cancer around for men because they don't find it very early. They think it's just a bump. They don't say anything, and by the time they get there, it's already moved and grown. So we always say, husband, brother.
Check your men.
Yeah. Anytime they tell you there's something going on, then get them in. It doesn't hurt.
Right.
So, and they go through the same process.
I was going to say, is it the same screening?
Same exact. I don't care how small you are, we can get you in that mammogram.
Don't I know it? You'll find a way to get in between those plates.
And, we're conscious that there may be some discomfort or embarrassment, so we try to move them on through like it's no big deal.
Yeah, but that's so important. What percentage? Do you have a number, the percentage of men?
It is about roughly 2,000 men a year. It's very small. But again, 1/4 of those men will die within the first 2 years of that breast cancer. Not so with women. So you have to realize how lethal it can be.
Yes. So let's talk about something that everybody talks about, right? And there's such an emphasis on wellness, health, preventative. Everybody's wanting to take measures to do right, eat right, sleep right, live right, and that, as can take on so many different forms. I mean, every day there's a new thing to do, a new way to live, a new lifestyle, something that's preventative for this, preventative for that. So, everybody's all over the place. We're all sort of in this preventative mindset. You and I are both believers in self-care and the importance of that. But you basically said to me, there's really no magic bullet in preventing breast cancer.
And I think that's important for women to hear. Yes, we want you to eat healthy. Yes, we want you to get enough sleep. But, breast cancer, someone once said to me, it's like walking out over a field full of landmines, and you may just step on one. It really, we don't have a fail-safe yet that says, boy, you do this, you won't get breast cancer. And even the prophylactic surgeries don't always get every single cell, and I don't want to discount that at all. But we just have to remember it's early detection, it's knowing your body, And I think of all the things that we do in our self-care efforts, then lowering your stress is probably the most
biggest.
important. Yeah. Because anytime you're under stress, your hormones go up and your immune system goes down. And no matter what, you've got to have that immune system ready to go to get rid of anything that might be starting. It's just that, again, know your body, do your annuals.
And take care of you.
Take care of you.
Yeah.
Take care of the inside you as well as the outside you. I mean, it's so much more.
I think it's a whole picture. And even though, like you said, yeah, maybe it is walking on a field of landmines, I think we can all agree that our odds increase in overall health, whether it's breast health, heart health, brain health, any kind of health, if we do take steps to be healthier. It's not a guarantee. Nothing's foolproof. Nothing is a guarantee. But certainly, we can do things to at least enjoy a better quality of life while we're here and try to increase our odds with knowing that, sure, I mean, something can happen, but at least we know if and when something does happen, there are resources for us for those times, because you don't want to ever make a woman feel guilty. There's so many women who say, I thought I did everything right. I was eating right. I, eliminated sugar from my diet. I exercised all the time. I did this. I lowered, I did all these things that I thought were setting me up for success, and yet I still developed. And I think guilt and shame are the worst feelings to attribute to anything.
Nothing you did. It's nothing you did. How many times have I heard, oh, God must be mad at me? No, this is not the God I know.
Right.
No, just understand that there are some diseases we still don't know a lot about.
Yep.
We still don't. So,
do you think people are shocked at this point that we don't know more?
Well, I am.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think there's a big gap in research in women's health. Huge.
Why do you think that is? Especially with breast cancer and all, but the funding and the pink ribbon campaigns. And I mean, there has been.
But remember, pink ribbon campaigns all had to do with awareness.
Yeah.
If you don't have access, it doesn't matter how much awareness you have. If I learned nothing else from Rose Kushner, what are you doing with those women once you educate them?
Yeah.
We've got to be sure everyone has access to care. Period. You're much more likely to go get that mammogram if you have a way to get it than if you have to figure it out, go find insurance, go find a doctor, go find a place. Come on.
Yeah, that's your biggest beef. And I get it. I get it. By now, it shouldn't be so hard.
It shouldn't be so hard.
Yeah. I want to talk about how people can find you, because I think I just love anytime I'm with you and just hearing you speak it's always a beautiful, informative conversation. It really lets me know that more work needs to be done and more conversations need to be had. So let's talk about your podcast. Let's talk about your breasts. What a great name for a podcast. And how do people find it? And tell me about some of the guests that you've had on it.
It's on all of the podcast platforms.
Okay.
And of course, you can always go to our website, therose.org, and you'll find it there. You'll find all of them listed. We've had certainly breast cancer survivors. We've had donors. We've had supporters in areas like third-party events. People who have held things like jumping out of the airplane every year for 10, 12 years now and have raised, almost $400,000 for us. I mean, so many times during Breast Cancer Month, people want to do something. And certainly we have many different kind of ways you can help us. And that is one of our real basics, is to have folks go out and raise money and then bring it to us. And it gives a whole sense of community. So I've had many of those. I've had employees. And I think every nonprofit, probably every business, ought to have a podcast, if for nothing else, to let your employees shine. Hear their stories. Hear why they made a change from a clerical job going back to radiology school to become a mammographer. Yeah. It's a 3-year process plus. It's not a small thing to become a mammographer. We've had our doctors, and I've had, people who are contributing to this field in different ways. folks who help you put together a health organizer, things like that. So it's certainly about breast cancer, certainly about mammograms, but also about these things that women probably never even thought about, but once you know them, it makes sense and you're just better informed.
What about sense of community once diagnosed? Is there, and I know there are organizations like Can Care that will, and they're a wonderful, great organization,
Yes.
and they will actually pair and partner a woman who even has the same specific type of breast cancer and match them with you so you have someone to talk about.
Right.
Do you guys provide or at least share those resources as well?
We certainly share those. Since COVID, we had 6 support groups that met in person before COVID. And once that came along, so many groups decided to go to an online process. Many medical centers have that kind of, resource for you, easy to find. Always want to be sure that you fit with the group. Be sure that you're not hearing something that makes you uncomfortable, then, run as fast as you can. Oddly enough, our Spanish-speaking support group is the only one that stayed. And during COVID, we tried to do this Zoom with all of them, but many did not have that bandwidth on their phones to make it work, and they are back in force. So
I love
you
that.
never know. Having that support, though, is so important.
It's everything.
And it can't just be your family. Now, not that your family can't be wonderful and is there for you and
it's different.
all of that. But boy, when you've had someone who's been there, who understands when you say something, what that means, who understands how radiation can make you hurt and the importance of wearing cotton and little things like that, it doesn't sound like a big thing, but it is to you when you're in treatment.
Yeah. So the podcast they can listen to and get a wealth of information from people from all walks of life, from the breast screening to the breast cancer experience. Tell me about your book and what people will learn when they read this.
This is really a story about nonprofits and what it takes to do any kind of business, probably. But the Rose has always been a organization of miracles. I
love that.
We do not pretend we did this by ourselves. We know we've always had a little higher power there helping us along. And as Dixie says, she just wished they would have told us the plan.
Exactly.
We might have gotten through this a little better. But it's also about the incredible resilience of women. I've never seen courage like I've seen in our ladies who have had breast cancer, and especially in our uninsured populations. It's not all many stories of women that didn't make it. The first few years when we had the Rose, I went to more funerals than my priest. And that's the big difference I see now. Women are living longer, they're surviving, the treatments are better. So it's hopefully a book of hope and also just real life. What a job I've had to be able to touch the fabric of people's lives.
I can't imagine how that must feel.
Oh, yeah. It has been, I am so grateful that I was given this opportunity.
Yeah. You were blessed with an idea and then the execution.
Well, we often say the Rose picked you.
Yeah.
You didn't pick the Rose. And I've had employees come to me and say, that made no sense at all. Until.
Until.
And it may be because we need you, but it also may be because you needed to be at the Rose during a certain time in your life. Remember, I have 120 employees, 119 who are female. So it really is a community of very strong women, and someone is always experiencing one of those phases in a woman's life. So, it's just fascinating.
Yeah, it is an amazing story to tell. And you know what else I want to add to it that I also admire and appreciate in you is that you are, and if you feel comfortable sharing your age,
Oh, sure, I'm 74.
You're 74 and you're still at it. Like, it's nobody's business. I mean,
I love what I do.
Yes. This is a passion project for you. And I speak so much about women finding their passion and realizing at any stage in their life they've got something to give. There is something to do in any form or any capacity. And I love the fact that here you are. And I don't see you quitting anytime soon.
No, but you know, this part of my life after 50 has been the most fun, fascinating, exploratory time I've ever had in all my life. And it's interesting, in the Women of the Rose, I touched upon finding the love of my life at 51 and marrying at 53, and people would come back to me and say, you know, the story's good, but I want to know more about that. and I'd think, okay, so now I'm writing that story. But it is true. It doesn't matter what it is. There's just got to be that reason to get out of bed in the morning and go do something. And I have too many interests. I don't want to quit. So, yeah.
I love that about you. I do. And I hope people receive that and see that no matter what age, there is still something to do and something to give and something to enjoy and celebrate in this life, and a way to touch others. Yes. Because really, that's, to me, the whole thing is that connectivity to one another and how we can help and make a difference. So thank you, Dorothy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me share so much today.
Oh, I could keep going and going and going. So.
And Dominique, thank you for being an inspiration. Oh. Good heavens. If women needed you ever, it's now. It's now, when we need to hear all the things that you say to us and ways that you make us not feel sorry for ourselves, not get in our little pity parties because we're older and all that jazz, you know. I think that's your number one gift to the world, and it is so special right now.
Thank you. I feel blessed to be here myself. Dorothy was very sweet and complimentary, but I'm sorry, I want to put the spotlight back on her. Just a reminder, if you want any information about The Rose, finding her podcast or her book, don't forget the website is therose.org. Again, therose.org. So appreciate this conversation. Many, many more to come in the month of October, as well as conversations about menopause as well, because it is World Menopause Month. So we're talking about women's health issues all month of October, and we've got so many great guests lined up for you too. Please, in the comment section, share your thoughts, ideas. If you have any questions for Dorothy, we can loop her in, have her take a look in the comment section. Of course, ideas and topics that you would like to see in future podcasts. I love to hear those. So important to help this platform grow. As Dorothy was mentioned, you know, we're trying to reach women here in their prime and offer them a wealth of information in so many different areas and arenas of life. That's why I'm here. So if you enjoy what you're listening to, please don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and share this podcast with women in your life who you know and love. Let's help this community grow. Thank you so much for being with me today.